See, a number of people today, not only in India but in many places, are beginning to suggest that there may be interesting ideas in ancient Indian wisdom, therefore one should look at it. Now, how do we understand ancient Indian wisdom? If we really set on this journey and try to cull out some ideas from ancient Indian wisdom, there are certain challenges, there are certain problems that we will face in this process. We will look at the first issue that we will face. We have a great misconception about ancient Indian wisdom, so therefore, even before we start, we seem to have a problem. Now, there are certain misconceptions. Let me explain them. The first misconception that many of us have is that ancient Indian wisdom is by and large a religious text, or sometimes people say no, it is not religious text, maybe it is a spiritual text. So how do we address, so how are we going to make use of it for solving some of the problems today? So this will be the first problem that we will face. Let me take a few shlokas from Bhagavad Gita to examine this assumption or this misconception. Let's look at these two shlokas from chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, which is a very famous shloka, many of us know. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Now if you look at these two shlokas explain the Avatara Purusha Mahima. He tells to Arjuna, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanihi bhavati, when the dharma deteriorates, gets spoiled. And why did it get spoiled? Abhyuttanam adharmasya. Because these evil forces are raising their head. And they are trying to overpower the dharmic, the order. Tada atmanam srijamyaham. So I take a human body, a human form. And the second shloka says, why? Paritranaya sadhunam, to protect good people. Vinashaya cha dushkritam, to cast away the evil forces, to eliminate the evil people from the society. Dharma samsthapanarthaya, to re-establish dharma, to re-establish this order. Sambhavami yuge yuge, I will come again and again. So if you make a reading of these two shlokas, there is very little doubt in our mind this is a religious idea, because it is talking about reincarnation of God Vishnu. It talks about Avatara Purusha Mahima. Now let's go a little bit further. To me it appears that while on the face of it, it has a good religious and a strong religious perspective to the idea, beneath that, if you carefully look at it, there is a very interesting fundamental principle of management which is contained in this. Just I will give you an example. What happens when the price of essential commodities keep rising all the time? Onion prices go to 70 rupees, 80 rupees and so on. Tomato prices, rice prices. Then the government has to intervene. It will intervene, it will try to set the price, prevent hoarding and so on. On the other hand, if the prices fall, again the government intervene and they try to establish a minimum support price in order to bring back a certain semblance of order. This is something which we know very well. I'll give you another example. In big cities like Bangalore, Chennai, what you find is in a four-way junction, the vehicles are all gridlocked. Everybody is in a hurry and everybody gets stuck in a four-way junction. Now somebody from the neighborhood comes, he is no way connected with this mess. That person comes, takes initiative and starts directing, asking a few people to wait, allowing some traffic to go, and then asking them to wait, allowing this traffic to go. So this way the traffic is cleared. Now there is something common to these two, and which can be related to the shloka. Now when the dharma gets deteriorated, or when the order gets destroyed, Sri Krishna says, I will take Avatara Purusha. If you translate it into management, I could have given a different explanation to this shloka. It will read like this. Stability and long-term sustainability of the system happens because there are regenerative points in the system. This Avatara Purusha reincarnation equivalent is a regenerative point in the system. When the system attains disequilibrium and shows signs of being unstable and going out of control, corrective measures are taken to restore equilibrium in the system. Now I could have said the same, given an explanation like this for these two shlokas. The point is that while there is a religious angle to it, there is a secular angle also. It provides some cardinal principle or related to equilibrium, which we could have easily inferred from the shloka if only we had contemplated more on what the shloka is actually telling us. We will take one more example. This is a nice shloka from chapter 2 again of Bhagavad Gita. It says, Vasamsi jirnani yata vihaya navani grinnati naroparani tata sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani sanyati navani dehi. So here is a nice idea. Vasamsi, the dress that we wear, jirnani yata vihaya, just like when the dress we are wearing is worn out, we normally discard it. Navani grinnati naraha aparani. So the person wears a new one. Tata, in the same way, jirnani sharirani vihaya. So the soul, the dehi, the soul says, this particular body is of no use to me. So therefore, let me just discard it. And it goes away from the body, which in our mortal world we call it as death. So that is what Sri Krishna is saying in this shloka. Now again, when you read this shloka, on the face of it, this is a shloka which is all spiritual because it talks about life, it talks about death, it talks about what is this process called death. One can infer such things from this shloka. So in that sense, this is very spiritual. Now again, if you contemplate deep on it, it actually points to a fundamental principle that organizations need to do in order to sustain their competitive advantage. And what is it? It's all about saying, if organizations do not cast away, discard their old ideas and old mindset, there is no way progress can ever happen. So in other words, if I had translated this shloka from this perspective, I would have said, in order to be successful and sustainable, organizations need to continuously engage themselves in discarding old ideas and old mindset and embrace new ones. But this is the charm of this Indian concept called Shiva Tattva. Shiva, in our mythological sense, is a god of destruction, but Shiva as a Sanskrit word means Mangala. The synonyms of Shiva, Shankara, Sham Karoti iti Shankara, he can do only good things. Sham Bhavati iti Shambho. So all these synonyms are pointing to good, whereas he is called the god of destruction. This shloka actually reminds us of this, that without destruction, progress is not possible. So there lies some ideas of how do you sustain competitive advantage. Perhaps this is what Joseph Schumpeter in the 50s, this well-known economics professor, said when he said, innovation through creative destruction. That is what is coming through this shloka. So what are we trying to get at? The point I am making is Indian texts are three-dimensional in nature. With the same shloka, you can get religious ideas, you can get spiritual ideas, you can also get secular ideas. That's the charm of ancient Indian wisdom. So this is the first misconception that we need to do away. Otherwise, we will not be able to make sense of ancient Indian wisdom. There's a second misconception, and that is many people feel ancient Indian wisdom is fine. 5,000 years back, 2,000 years back, it would have made a lot of sense. I do not think it has relevant thoughts for today. This is another issue, another misconception. Let me again go to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3. There is a 36th shloka. Let me share that shloka with you. Atakkena prayuktoyam papam charati purushah anichanapi vashneya baladiva niyojitah. Arjuna is asking Sri Krishna that Atakkena prayuktah, who is forcing him? Kena prayuktah papam charati purushah. People engage in some wrong things. Who is forcing them? That's the first line of the shloka. The second line of the shloka says, Anichanapi Varshneya, He Varshneya, He Krishna, Anichanapi, there was no icha, there was no desire to engage, to do that. Baladiva niyojita, as though somebody has pushed me, somebody has made me the victim of situation. Now, this question, in my personal belief, would be asked now, would be asked millions of years later, would be asked as long as human beings exist. I'll give you an example. I come back from the office, things didn't go well in the office. Maybe, my review didn't go well, or I didn't meet up with what I should have met up. So, I am a little upset. I come home, and this 2-year-old child comes to me, my son or daughter comes to me, and then does its small little, innocent tantrums. I just shout at this child. Or I just transfer all these bad moods to my spouse for no reasons. This is what I do in the evening. Then I don't get sleep, I get a disturbed sleep. Next day morning I get up and ask this same question. Why did I do? I should not have done it. Now, same thing, I shout at people whom I respect. I pick up an argument with a very close friend of mine, a good well-wisher, but little later this question always comes. Atakkena prayuktaha ayam papam charati purushah anichanapi vashneya baladiva niyojitah. So, this is the closing part of chapter 3. There are 7 shlokas. In reply, Sri Krishna tells why does such a thing happen. Who said there is no relevance here? This is an example. So the point I am trying to make is, if we have the right perspective and keep away this misconception, ancient Indian wisdom perhaps can give us a lot of relevant ideas and relevant thoughts for today. My own personal understanding is ancient Indian wisdom has a very long shelf life. There is a third misconception that we have. Ancient Indian wisdom is a set of dogmas, it's all beliefs, blind beliefs, you just take it or leave it. This is another misconception. Let me quote one shloka from Srimad Bhagavata Mahapurana in the 3rd canto, 3rd Tritiya Skanda, 9th chapter. The 9th chapter is all about time. There is a discussion on time. So in those about 100 plus shlokas, what you find is a description of time from 10 power minus 5 seconds to 10 power 17 human years. Now, in order to describe all these, you need to start with a certain definition of time. And you can say twice of it is this, or half of this is this, and so on. So there is one shloka. Shloka goes like this. Dwadasharda palonmanam chaturbir chaturangulaihi swarnamashai kritachidram yavat prastha jala plutam. So this is a very nice shloka. Dwadasha ardha. Dwadasha is 12, ardha is half, so therefore 6. Pala. Pala is a measure of weight in India. Until 50 years back, even in today some villages they are doing it. So 6 pala weight vessel. Dwadashartha palonmanam. Chaturbihi also 4. So there is another weight of 4 pointing to something. Chaturangulaihi 4 inches, 4 angulas. So there is a 6 pala vessel. There is something which is 4 pala heavy and 4 inches long. The next sentence says, Swarna Masha, golden needle. So there is a golden needle which is 4 palas heavy and 4 inches long. Because it is gold, we know the specific gravity, so the diameter is automatically fixed. Because if you tell me the material diameter, length and the weight, I can tell you the diameter. So now we are actually defining the diameter. Krita chidram, make a hole on this copper vessel which is 6 palas. Prastha, you leave it on a water body, the water starts seeping through it. So when the water just starts, coming through the hole, start a stop clock. And then when the vessel is full, plutam, jala plutam, when the water is full in the vessel, stop the clock. That elapsed time is called nadika. That is the definition. Now this experiment can be repeated any number of times. In a religious text, somewhere in a particular canto, there is an experimental description of how do you measure time. This is again one example. The point I am trying to make is ancient Indian wisdom is not a set of dogma or belief. They are known for keen observation, deep experimentation. They have not explained the experimentation, but the results have come. So I think this is the third misconception. So in our journey to understand ancient Indian wisdom, the first step is we have to keep these misconceptions away. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for us to meaningfully make sense of ideas contained in ancient Indian wisdom. So this is an issue which we need to reflect, we need to think about and take a position on this. Only then there is a hope in making use of ancient Indian wisdom for solving some of the problems that we have today.